Hi and welcome to the European Tour's Life on Tour podcast. I'm your host Ewan Porter, and today I'm joined by a prolific winner around the world of golf, and he's one of the European Tour's Ironmen. Justin Harding, welcome to the podcast.
Ewan, thanks very much for having me, my man. Cheers.
Well, look, you've got a fascinating story to tell. You've had an incredible journey, really. Let's go back to where it all began in the Western Cape in South Africa. Were you always set for global golf domination, or were rugby, cricket, surfing, were they the focus growing up?
Look, I certainly don't think it was rugby. I think the Afrikaans boys back home, they were a little bit bigger than I was. No, I was quite sporty, to be fair. I played quite a bit of cricket, field hockey. But I mean, at the end of the day, I went to Paul Roos Gymnasium and ultimately just kind of chose individual sport. I found that it gave me the best opportunity to succeed. I felt like the challenge was a little bit better that way. Wasn't overly reliant on teammates, if that made any sense in terms of getting my own success out of it. And it's can't really pinpoint when exactly I made that decision, but ultimately just pretty much focused on my golf from about 13, 14, 15, and just kind of went through all the different underage groupings, and both on a provincial and a national level, and had success and kind of just kept going, really, to be fair.
Well, I know you played a lot of junior golf alongside Brandon Grace, but who were some of the other young guns in South Africa growing up then?
Well, Gracie and I were together, George Coetzee, Louis de Jager. There's quite a few of the South Africans. You'll actually find a lot of South Africans that have come out on tour now, all kind of played together at the same age groups. It's actually pretty cool how it works. I mean, the younger guys have all now played together as well. But a couple names that you might probably not know of that really actually gave me a hard time and probably beat me on a regular basis was Anton Haig, who came out early and won the Johnny Walker back in the day. And then Matthew Kent, youngster also from the Western Cape. Matthew was unbelievable. I always kind of felt like whenever I went into a tournament back then, if I beat him, you were always going to be hunting for a trophy type story. So there were a couple guys. Trying to think. I think just at the end of the day, South Africa is just filled with a hell of a lot of really good golfers, and I mean we're just super competitive by nature and aggressive as well. So it kind of suited us to kick on and challenge ourselves at both a junior level and then at a different level a little later on in life.
Look, as professional golfers, we're very lucky to be able to travel the world and meet some of the people we do and have some really amazing experiences. But I know myself, I reflect on my junior days. They're some of my fondest memories. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, absolutely. I think back then you kind of appreciated them quite a bit more. I mean, it was you'd leave the house and you'd come home and you'd pick up a trophy, or I mean, the events that we were playing in, you'd win like a pack of meat or a rack of lamb or something like that. So the parents were always happy when you came home. There was always a smile on their faces. I think it's also just the fact that, I mean, as you're growing up, you're best of friends, and at the same time, you're just trying to beat the hell out of each other, if that makes any sense. And I mean, it was rewarding back then. And I guess at the same time, when you're successful at a pro level, it becomes rewarding as well, because you kind of know all the hard work that you've put into it over the years.
Well, look, following your junior career, you were offered a scholarship to attend Lamar University in Houston, Texas. And I know there's been quite a few South African players that have gone through there over the years too. I know Louis Ferreira went there, Davy Vanderwalt. Did that influence your decision at all? Because I imagine you had quite a few offers.
Yeah, funny enough, I actually didn't really. At that point in time, there weren't really a lot of South African golfers that had gone over and played. You'd had your stretch a few years before that where a couple of the guys, Wesley Tucker and Tim Clark, and a few of those guys went to NC State. Mm-hmm. But it was also very much the type of situation where if you had a couple South Africans at a particular school, you kind of had a route in, but your bigger schools didn't really have their eye on South African golf at that point in time. Only really became relevant when we started having a bit more success, and then the University of Texas obviously got their eyes on Brandon Stone and Dylan Fratelli. But yeah, I think I had an offer from North Florida University up in Jacksonville.
Yep.
And I mean, it looked like a pretty nice place. I think it's like the Beverly Hills of Florida. But no, Davy van der Walt was over at Lamar University, and he kind of said to me, "Listen, why don't you come over here? It's all right. I mean, the town of Beaumont's not exactly special by any means, but the program was very good. The golf course was good, and they had a good vision in terms of trying to get the best out of the group. And we had an unbelievable first couple of years with our team. We were hugely competitive. I think we finished 9th at Nationals the first year that I was there, and then 3rd at Nationals the year after. Obviously, with recruiting, the team wouldn't say lost its mojo a little bit, but you have guys moving on, and just added a little bit more pressure on the youngsters coming through. But no, ultimately it was a really good 4 years. Again, it was one of those situations where I was 18 years old. Either I turned pro, know nothing about tour life or how to navigate things. Difficult to rent cars. You're going to have to travel with your folks, this and that. Collegiate golf and challenging myself over there was the next step forward, really.
Well, you referenced you had a pretty successful career. Upon graduation there, was the initial plan to remain in the US then at that point, or did you always sort of want to go back home then?
To be fair, it was either I stay over there or I come back and do Sunshine Tour Q School. Because if I had stayed, then I would have missed the opportunity to do Sunshine Tour Q School, and then therein obviously missing an opportunity to play that following season in South Africa. So I just came back home, got my tour card, had an absolute nightmare of a first year. Really, I think had to pre-qualify for about 9 events. I missed all of them. Actually, the first one that I did qualify for was the event that I won. I got a spot because Ernie withdrew. He couldn't make it. He was one of the title sponsors, so he was obviously asked to play, but he couldn't make it. So I got a spot. And yeah, went on and won. I think it was Vodacom Origins of Golf at Samola. No, I've already forgotten where it was. Obai. Sorry, Obai.
Well, your record on the Sunshine Tour it's absolutely phenomenal. You didn't just win in your first season; you won in each of your first 3 seasons. 7 wins on the Sunshine Tour, and I know you travelled to some incredible places there throughout Southern Africa. I mean, how do you reflect upon your time playing there?
No, look, I loved it. I mean, I obviously try and go back and play as best I can. But as I said earlier in the show, I think since I've got off the Sunshine Tour and played in Europe and seen the guys come through from South Africa, I obviously knew how hard it was to make it onto the European Tour, just obviously through navigating the qualification school and stuff like that. But I think the quality of golf down in South Africa and on the tour is underrated. I think it's actually exceptional in comparison to a lot of other places. The only issue is the fact that they're obviously starving for sponsorship and money. So the guys aren't playing for a bucket load of cash in comparison to a lot of the other tours in the world, and it's probably the one reason why they are actually coming out as good and as ready as they are. Look, it's a credit to Thomas Abt and Selwyn Nathan and all those involved on the Sunshine Tour. I mean, it's creating a very good product and pathway for the youngsters.
Well, I think that word pathway is really important, because when I see the alliance that the European Tour have alongside the Sunshine Tour, it reminds me of 15, 20 years ago here in Australia. To begin the season, we used to have what was the nationwide tour then, now the Corn Ferry Tour. We used to have 2 or 3 events out here to start the year every year when it was too cold in the US. And that went on for a good 7 or 8 years. And the amount of Australians, like Mark Leishman, for example, he was one that came through and earned enough money to get on the nationwide tour then. But there were so many Australians that qualified to play the nationwide tour via that route that, it really does offer some terrific opportunities for South Africans. And I know a lot of players from South Africa, like a Trevor Fisher Jr., for example, have played their way onto the European Tour that way.
Yeah, no, look, I think without it obviously just makes things so much more difficult. Touch wood, I've had to go to Q School once. It was a nightmare. You go from first stage in Spain or in Italy to last stage, and if you don't make it, you just pack your bags and you go home. It's an absolute grind, and then come to think of it, you get your card and you only get a minimal amount of events, and they're all low purses, so you're having to really try and put some finishes together to kind of secure your card for the following year. I've always kind of looked at tour schools as like 2-year project. You kind of have to play the first year and just try and put up as much money as you can to almost exemplify yourself for the following year. I know Asian Tour was a lot similar to that as well. I did things a little bit differently, of course. I gave the Q School a skip, which was an added bonus. But I mean, I think the same applies for that. It's just, I think, taking advantage of those co-sanctioned events and the tri-sanctioned events and those pathways that you speak of is just, I mean, it's like gold dust. If you get the opportunity to do it, you just have to grab it and run.
Well, apart from a few co-sanctioned European events and the 2013 Open, which you played at Muirfield, you toiled away for 8 seasons on the Sunshine Tour, and then 2018 won back-to-back events in Swaziland, earned an invitation to go and play the Indonesian Open on the Asian Tour, just happened to go and win that. The following week, won again at the Royal Cup in Thailand. You're still the only player in Asian Tour history to win their first 2 events on that tour. I mean, what was the recipe behind that that torrid stretch?
I wish I could tell you, because I've been looking for it ever since. No, it's I think back end of 2017, early part of 2018, I was kind of treading water, to be fair, in South Africa. I was competitive. I'd play one week and I'd play well, and I'd maybe scratch a win or a top 5. But then the following week, if I wasn't in contention, I'd kind of just go through the motions type story. So I had a look at, I'm not a huge statistics guy, but I had a look at statistics. And over the previous 5 years, I was always top 5 in birdies made. But then I was looking at my stroke average, and I kind of figured, well, I'm probably top 5 in bogeys made as well then, if that's the case. So it was just kind of more of a mindset change in terms of course management and I guess working my way around the golf course, trying to minimize mistakes. I had absolutely no idea that I would have adapted it as quickly as I had. I kind of looked at Justin Rose as an example. When Rosie was playing unbelievably, you'd watch 4 days of the PGA Tour and you wouldn't see him, and next minute on Sunday evening he's in 7th, the end of the week, or 11th, that sort of thing. Whereas I kind of always in the back of my head felt like, if you aren't in contention, you're not really going to be finishing up there. So yeah, I guess I just kind of stay a little bit more patient when I wasn't in contention, and then allowed myself to potentially shoot a low round or 2 over the weekend and at least put myself up there. I think I strung together 3 or 4 top 5s before that 2-week stretch in Swaziland where I won. One of them was very, very lucky. I mean, my friend Lyle, he made a double bogey in a points format Stableford event and pretty much handed it to me on a plate. I still feel bad. I mean, we joke about it now at the moment, but he kind of says that he kick-started my career. I laugh. He's probably right. But yeah, ultimately it was just a lot of good golf. It was not a lot of mistakes, keeping bogeys off my card, ultimately just adding up the birdies and seeing where it was at the end of the week. The Sunshine Tour then went obviously into a break period, winter break, and I was trying to find a place to play just about anywhere. Someone mentioned Asian Tour to me, and I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't quite think I would like Asia, to be fair. It was a long way from home. It's just different. There's not a lot of South Africans. I didn't think there was going to be a lot of English spoken, to be fair. I mean, it was a bit naive in my ideology, but went over. It was hot as hell. But yeah, I just kind of kept going and found myself in a position to win on Sunday. And I still think that was probably one of the hardest rounds of golf I've had in a very, very long time. myself, friend of mine, Scott Vincent, who's been playing great over in Asia and now in Japan for a long time, and Siwon Kim were in the final group. And me obviously going over on an invite meant that it was win or go home. I finished second. I was unlikely to get enough starts to actually put up enough money to get a card in Asia. So to get over the line there and obviously secure a card and playing privileges and all the exemptions which go in with it was just unbelievable. It was crazy.
And you wound up finishing third on the Asian Order of Merit, at the end of 2018. It earned a European Tour card for 2019. You alluded to obviously the statistics that you looked at the end of 2017 and tried to implement a few changes there. For someone so talented, why do you think it took you so long to reach a major tour? Were there any other sort of changes or lifestyle changes that you made off the golf course that helped as well?
Yeah, look, I think, I'll be honest with you, I did stop drinking or socially and that sort of stuff. I think South Africa, due to the nature of the event and where they're located, a lot of them are on like resorts or out in the middle of nowhere in little bushes to try and attract the clientele for the pro-am events. A lot of the events are pro-am. Just try and grab them and keep them there for 3 or 4 weeks, or 3 or 4 days, So, because we're all also friends, you kind of stay together, you sit around a braai and you have a couple beers and this and that. And I guess George could see how another mate of mine touched upon it. He kind of said, listen, maybe you should just stop messing around and kind of do it properly for a bit. So just kind of stop drinking entirely, try to focus purely on golf, allow myself to get more practice in, focus a little better at events. Just ultimately a minor life change, but what it did was it just pretty much emphasized my golf entirely. Took everything out of the way and said, right, I'm now going to properly focus on what we're doing here. Also, again, whether that had as big an impact, it probably did, but you never really know. It's difficult to kind of pinpoint what exactly happened or how it happened. There were obviously those minor factors that kind of went in. I mean, I do think strongly that the nature of the way I played the game, especially my first 5-6 years, which was super aggressive. You're either finishing first or you're finishing 45th or missing the cut. I changed that dynamic completely, and I actually found that I finished first more often. That makes any sense. Also found that I was a little bit more consistent in terms of my results. So I could go from week in to week out with a little bit more confidence, as opposed to walking into the week thinking, right, well, we won 3 weeks ago, but the last 2 weeks we've been terrible. So it's a difficult one. I mean, we all know this game is super hard, and there's so many different factors that can affect any given day or shot. That's why we all play the game. It's hugely rewarding at the end of the day.
Well, it's quite fascinating. I don't know what the Asian Tour was like in 2018, but when I was playing 04 or 05, I don't think you would have lasted not drinking. I don't know if there were any foreign guys not drinking.
I agree. I mean, it was water, sparkling waters and cappuccinos. That's pretty much what I lived on for a good year and a half. It was quite... Look, all my mates, obviously, they were hugely supportive of the decision on tour as well. They gave me a little bit of slack for the first, I would say, probably 2 months. But then once they kind of thought that I was now serious about it, they all kind of pushed me along. And obviously, it helped that the results were working, which just made it seem like the right decision at the time. So it just carried on.
Yeah, for sure. And look, to start 2019, you had a really good start to the year. 7th, 11th, 4th in your first 3 events. Then went to Qatar, claimed your first European Tour win. You won by 2 shots there over 9 players. In a 12-month stretch, you'd won 5 times. You'd started 2018 number 716 in the world. After you won Qatar, you'd reached number 52 in the world. What describe the sense of euphoria, I guess, after winning and establishing yourself, that you'd arrived on the world stage essentially.
Yeah, I think it took a very long time for it all just to kind of settle in, because it was very much just like a continuous movement. Every time I kind of went anywhere, I was playing to try and get somewhere else. So it was almost like I had like a constant goal the whole way around. It wasn't like I had set a goal in the beginning and you kind of work your way through it and you map your way out of it. It was almost like there was a road there and you just had to keep following the road. You just couldn't take a turn. It's amazing when I think back upon it, because it is remarkable how it went from pretty much nowhere to somewhere very quickly. I mean, although Giggle, Mike Tirico and the boys there in America were always saying, right, well, he was in Zambia and then he's now at the Masters in the space of like 14 months or something ridiculous. And they rattled off all the different top 10s in different countries I'd played golf in over the last 18 months. It's an unbelievable journey, it really is, but it shows you what pathways, those things that we touched on earlier, actually can do for the game of golf, because I didn't think it was possible at the time, obviously during the process, and as we kept going and as I kept playing well and posting results, I kind of knew that, maybe I can actually get to these levels. Always kind of thought that I was competitive and a good enough golfer to compete in the European Tour. That was never a doubt. It was just the struggle of getting onto it. That was ultimately the biggest challenge.
Yeah, well, look, not long after you won Qatar, I mentioned that you reached number 52 in the world after that win. Well, you reached the top 50 not long after that. That earned you your first trip to the Masters at Augusta National, and you finished 12th there on debut at a venue that's notoriously difficult for first-timers. So how did you adapt so quickly? Or were you disappointed with 12th, given the fact you'd won everything prior to that?
No, I suppose you could never be disappointed. I kind of said going into the week, it was all just about handling my emotions. If I handled my emotions well throughout the week, I would have been okay. And for the most part, I birdied the first hole. I said to Alan, my caddy, I said, right, let's leave. We're out. I mean, we've come. It's not going to get better than that. So from that point onwards, I spent the entire week under par. I was never even par at any stage in time. I was birdied the first and under for the rest of the round. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then, the first time I dropped off the leaderboards at any stage in the event was when I bogeyed the 10th hole on Sunday. And I was like, okay, well, that's a bit annoying, because we always have this T12 gets you back the following year. Ended up making a couple birdies, and then I think I hit it in the water on 15, which was just a dreadful mistake, and made a bogey there, which dropped me back again. And Alan and I were saying, right, well, we're going to have to make birdie up the last. We just have to do it. And I hit it obviously further away than I would have liked, but I poured it in. It was a cool moment. I don't give it too many fist bumps, but I gave it one there. That was pretty sweet. Walked up into the scorer's hat. The dude says, well played, well played. I said, listen, how many people are still coming to finish? And it was Poulter coming up the last, and the guys were trying to interview me, and all I was concerned about was what score Poulter was making. But yeah, look, I putted well that week. I putted unbelievably. I found good speed early on, and the greens just didn't really intimidate me, to be fair. I think there's times where they get super fast and stuff like that, but yeah, I can't explain it to you. I just saw the lines, but I think I saw the lines because I had good speed. It wasn't like I was standing there concerned about racing 6 feet past or this and that. And the interesting thing about Augusta is we've all played it so many times in our mind because we watch it every year. So you kind of know, right, well, you hit it there on 7, or you lay it up down there on 11, or you go there on 12. Ernie helped me. He kind of said on 12, you just hit it straight at the bunkers. Don't mess around with any of the flags. And I played 12 in 3 under par that year. So it was just a lot of things went right. I mean, I look back and I've made some mistakes. I think I shot level par on the Sunday, which was a bit of a struggle. But at the same time, also, I was fourth last group on Saturday with Tiger in front of me, thankfully, because the crowds all just went forwards and not into me. And then third last group on Sunday with Xander trying to win the golf tournament. I mean, we were having to wait for the crowds to stop roaring while they were posting birdies from Tiger so Xander could putt. Look, it was an unbelievable experience in terms of if I were to explain the two, that one with Tiger winning and the crowd and the roars was mind-blowing. And then the following year, obviously COVID related with no crowd, and DJ when it was just completely different. It wasn't the same atmosphere. It didn't feel like the same event. It was a bit odd.
Look, you mentioned your putting before. That's something that's fascinated me because in 2019 you led the putts per round statistic on the European Tour. You use a broomstick putter and you've used one for a long time. Given the fact that they banned anchoring the putter in 2016, was there an adjustment period for you, or is it something that came pretty naturally?
I actually stopped using it. I didn't even think twice about it, to be fair. They banned it and I went to a short putter, and I putt all right with a short putter, but I obviously putt a hell of a lot better with a long one. I kind of, when was it? I won, but again, I was having inconsistent results. Bit of a streaky putter, if you would say that. You'd have a week where you hold everything, and then another week where you just don't feel it and stuff like that. Alan, my caddy, had actually suggested at the time, he was working for George, but we played quite a bit of social golf together back home in Stellenbosch. And he had said, listen, why don't you just go back to the long putter? And I didn't think it was going to be very stable with it being away. I thought, well, if the wind blows, it's going to blow all over the place. Because, I mean, let's be honest, the long putter is probably a bigger challenge in the wind than any other one. It's a hard one. But funny enough, I gave it a try and I actually liked it because it's got more of a pendulum. Obviously, with it anchored and up against your chest, it creates that minor arc. And with it away, it kind of feels like it can be a straight back, straight through, or a little bit closer to that. And yeah, it was just ultimately about trying to get the right weight for it and allowing it to kind of do the work by its own. Yeah, it was a good move. Look, it's made me some money, so it works. I mean, it's not foolproof. It still misses. I'd like to have the putt back again at Celtic Manor in Wales a couple of weeks ago. But having said that, I didn't want Nudge to 3-putt in regulation as well. So he deserves it, and it was a bit of an odd one. But yeah, I've made too many putts to really take back a few that I've missed.
You certainly have. It's done you the world of good the last few years. Look, you're living in the Surrey region of England now, just outside of London, with your girlfriend Leah. Is that your permanent base?
Yes, yeah. That's I've kind of been here for about 14 months, give or take.
Okay.
It's nice. I'm 10 minutes from the golf course. It's easy. 20 minutes from Heathrow. It's a little bit, from that aspect, it's a little bit closer to what I had in South Africa, in terms of just golf course and ease of travel and getting out. I mean, ultimately speaking, I mean, the majority of the world don't really think too much about living too close to an airport. But when you travel as much as we do, you don't really want a long commute once you've already commuted, if that makes any sense.
No, not at all. I mean, look, there's so many wonderful golf courses in that Surrey region, and a lot of top tour players live there, and you practice and play out at the Wisley, which is one of the best golf courses in the region. What's a typical week off for you look like? Are you resting? Are you grinding? Are you playing money games with other tour players?
Yeah, it's actually funny enough. It's changed. I mean, you'd probably find 3 years ago, my weeks off would still constitute 4 or 5 rounds of golf, whether it be socially with a couple of the members at Stellenbosch Golf Club or my dad. But at that point in time, I was also doing 23 weeks in South Africa when travel was actually pretty easy. I've found that over the last year or so, especially playing the European Tour, my off weeks have a little less golf in them. Maybe a couple rounds here and there, and just a bit of work on the range. I did 6 weeks now in a row, so I've been back this is now my third off week, which is verging on a long one for me. I don't like sitting on the couch for too long, but I think first week we spent up in Northern Ireland, so we just kind of saw Leah's family. Last week I pretty much spent the week on the couch, either watching shows, playing FIFA, PlayStation, baseball. I'm a sports nut when it comes to all the games. But yeah, this week is work week, so I've been on the range from Sunday, and I'll hit balls for a couple hours, and then I'll go out and play 9 holes or 18 holes, depending on what's going on. But yeah, ultimately, when I'm trying to get back into it, I like to kind of play as much as I can. I'm not a range rat. I do like to hit my golf balls, which has also changed because I used to never practice. I used to always just play. Now I actually hit a few golf balls as well. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, try to keep it as casual as possible, really. I think traveling's hard. I didn't really realize it until you actually made it out onto an actual main tour. Is just how difficult it is, because I mean, at the same time, you're obviously needing and wanting to play well. You're wanting to put money in your back pocket. I found like there's doorbell ringing. I found that the majority of people. We had a discussion with one of the guys at the Wesley yesterday. I said to him, "Yeah, 6 weeks. I've had 6 weeks now, and of which 5 of them I was probably in the top 10 for going into the weekend. And they're just like high intensity rounds, high focus intensity rounds, and they're draining, as opposed to if you're having 3 or 4 weeks where you're finishing 40th, 45th, or 50th. It's just not the same sort of mindset. So yeah, I think when you're playing well, I think taking a break is necessary. I mean, I wish I would have liked to have played Scotland and now London a week ago, but ultimately I've got to put my feet up and give it a rest, and hopefully come back next week with the same game.
Well, let's go back to 2020. Given your meteoric rise in 2018 and 2019. I guess 2020 was somewhat disappointing by your standards, but you still managed a pair of top 3s in Andalusia and at the British Masters. But how much did the pandemic affect your year?
Funny enough, I don't think it was the pandemic. I think it was a bit of a letdown from not getting a PGA Tour card. I think because I've looked at it a couple times and thought about it. I think the fact of the matter was because I was on that rise as I was, it just kind of felt inevitable, if it made any sense. I mean, I was obviously playing PGA Tour on that exemption category from inside top 50 in the world. I had a couple good finishes. Brandon Grace and I played that Memphis event, and Louisiana. And we were in second place, absolutely cruising. We went out on the Sunday and had a nightmare. I mean, I think if we had finished second or third there, I would have secured my card. And ultimately, it just didn't work out. I went to Memphis a couple of weeks later, played a bad final round in Memphis. I think I shot 4 over par around there and dropped to 40th in WGC. And just kind of slowly played my way out of that card, and then went to the Corn Ferry Tour finals and felt like I had it snatched away from me, just out of nowhere. Finished T7th in the first event in Ohio. 7th on my own would have got me a card. Finished 42nd in Boise. 35th, one shot better, would have secured my card. I think I went into the final with a 99.9% chance of making it. Tom Lewis flew over, finding out that he could actually play. Ended up winning. So he cost me. And then, I mean, I missed the cut, so I put it on my own and left it with other people. And ultimately just sat there watching on the Sunday evening, just it all transpire. And coming down to the last putt, Lanto, who's a mate of mine, and we joke about it all the time. He missed about an 8-footer to get us all in. Instead, I was the only one left out in 26th. So that, I think, hurt. Because, as I said earlier in the show as well, I mean, America is obviously where you want to play golf. It's where you want to challenge your skills and play against the best golfers in the world on a regular basis. So I think not getting that hurt. And psychologically, there was probably a bit of a dent for the majority of 2020. Having said that, I think if I get over the line in either Close House or Valderrama, it changes the year completely. Renato played really well at Close House in finishing that off. I didn't really feel like I had too much of just didn't feel like I had any momentum throughout the entire day there. Did feel like I would maybe snatch it there at Valderrama though, but ended up hitting it in the trees on 18, which isn't too difficult to do. No. And made a mess from there, but yeah, it was an odd year. It was a weird one. Obviously, we had the COVID break, and we had 4 months of no golf and practically no practice. And we came out in the European Tour, and Keith and his team, and Andrew Murray and all those guys, obviously did an unbelievable job in being able to get us back out on the golf course playing. That UK swing was pretty cool. And yeah, it's just probably a lot of lackluster, slack golf, to be fair. And yeah, I'm ultimately probably glad that I got through it all. I was disappointed because I missed the 3 in South Africa at the end of the year. I was injured. I'd gone over and played a Corn Ferry Tour event and slipped down the stairs outside the golf club on a rainy day and screwed my back up completely and went to the Masters trying to swing it with one hand. Wasn't any good. Myself and Eric Van Rooy and Shane, the two of us, were sitting there on the hospital beds in the mornings. He ended up not being able to go out, and I ended up trying, and it was a waste of time, and I had to pretty much pack in the rest of the year. So it was a bit disappointing, but at the same time, it was probably motivating as well to make sure that I went into this year with the right mindset and try to take it on.
Well, you started off 2021 pretty solidly. You made 3 consecutive cuts in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Saudi. No real sort of top finishes, and then missed the cut in Qatar where you'd won before. And then the following week, you captured your second European Tour title at the Kenyan Open. You beat Kurt Kitayama by a couple of shots there. Given the relatively lean patch leading into it, and then the injury at the back end of 2020, did that win surprise you?
It did. It didn't surprise me because of where it came. I'd had success on the golf course in 2019 when Guido Migliotti won. I came second. Mm-hmm. So I kind of knew that I liked the golf course. We kind of had a set plan going in. We had hit a lot of good shots around there, so there were a lot of good vibes and not a lot of bad memories. So I knew that I would be somewhat competitive. Getting over the line, I think I said it in my interview after the round. I mean, it's hard getting that second one. It's almost harder than the first one. You kind of feel like, right, well, that first one you've got, it's a monkey off the belt, but I think it's more the second one which is the biggest monkey. It was just nice. It was rewarding. Kurt and I obviously came through Asia as well. So we've known each other for a long time. We're good mates. And yeah, he kept pushing. I mean, he kept chipping balls in and making it really difficult. There's another one. I kind of wish I got the next one over the line as well, but I made a mess of that.
Well, Karen Country Club there in Kenya, you referenced you had an affinity for it, finishing runner-up there in 2019. It's a tricky, old-school layout. Are they the style of golf courses? Do you prefer playing that, or you really don't mind? I know some people like the traditional layout, some people like Bombers Paradises, but what about you?
Yeah, I think I don't really have a particular preference. ultimately, if you get a bomber's golf course, you're just going to have to try and out-putt them. And I feel like I'm decent with that club in my hand, so I've always got a chance regardless. Obviously, obviously, the bomber's golf course is going to lend itself towards guys being able to hit a little bit closer than you are, so their chances are going to be better. But on a short fiddly placement type golf course, everyone's going to kind of be playing from the same place. It's one where, again, you just kind of, I'd played it with success. I knew how to play the golf course. I knew where to put it. I knew where to miss it. I do think I'm probably better on that, and that's maybe why I was successful in Asia as well, because Asia's by no means bombers. You can't play out of the Bermuda rough in Asia. It's just impossible. You have to hit the fairway. I think Kenya is very much similar to that. I think I like golf courses which demand accuracy or placement off the tee, to where it's kind of like a setup. It's not just hit it, find it, hit it again type story. You kind of always want to play a golf course which is going to reward good shots and punish bad ones. It doesn't necessarily have to be a hugely overly difficult golf course. It must just be a nicely set up one sometimes.
Well, you mentioned your close call in Wales at Celtic Manor recently, just last month actually losing the playoff to Nacho Elvira there, but you were seventh the following week at the ISPS Handa World Invitational in Northern Ireland, and both of those finishes came off the back of a top 20 at the Open Championship at Royal St George's. So obviously, coming into this break that you're on now, the game's been feeling really good.
Yeah, no, I've been playing nicely. I think I had a good stretch where it started in Germany, BMW International. Was playing really well. I think I was in third place and I bogeyed the last two holes trying to chase down second. So finished fifth there. Following week also played quite nicely. The Renaissance and I, we need to somehow become friends. We're just not friends at the minute. I haven't figured out in 3 years. I've still not figured out how to play that golf course. I obviously need to now because it's turning into a PGA Tour event next year. So I'm gonna have to try and figure that one out. But yeah, the Open was an unbelievable experience. Again, very, very good. I thought the golf course and the RNA set it up superbly. I thought that it didn't feel like it was overly fiery. They were especially challenging with their pin placements on a few of the days, I think, as well. And that bit well for me because, again, as I said, you didn't kind of want it to be a putting contest. You kind of wanted it to be able to, okay, you know what? I wish Sunday the wind had kind of got up a little bit more to where level par was a decent score or 1 under was a decent score. It kind of felt like there was a little bit more birdie opportunities out there, and I just didn't take good advantage of it. Yeah, it's golf's strange though, because again, as you said, I've had that run that I've had, and now I've put my feet up, and now the challenge is obviously trying to get back on the horse and do it all over again.
Well, look, I referenced in the opening you were one of the tour's Ironmen. You've played 67 European Tour events since the start of 2019, and that's with a 4-month hiatus last year. Some of the top players in the world, they play less than 20 events a year. You know, not too many play more than, say, 20, 22. Why do you enjoy playing so frequently?
I think I just like the challenge, to be fair. I think deep down I kind of know that I'm decent at this game and I want to get something out of it. And ultimately you probably find that what I have got out of it isn't enough yet. When will enough be enough? Who knows? I couldn't tell you that, but I think I enjoy it. At the same time, it's also, if I wasn't playing any good, then you'd probably find I might not be playing quite as much. But I feel like I am playing well, and I am competitive, and I'm putting myself in contention on a weekly basis, or at least try to. And as long as I'm doing that regularly, I'm going to keep playing as much as I can. I think you probably find if you make the move or you make the jump to America or stuff like that, you might find that you play a little bit less. I think at the same time, it's just a game I love to play, and I enjoy it. And fortunately, my caddy likes it just as much as I do. So he's on the bag for the majority of the weeks, and I can't really tell you why, but I just like it.
Well, you mentioned before too that being in contention, which you have been pretty regularly, it can be emotionally draining, and also playing that much. There's also it can pose some physical issues as well. So how does your a typical tournament week look to you? How do you prepare? Do you sort of taper off a bit after an event?
Yeah, well, if I'll normally always take the Monday off regardless. So if you've played the week before, you travel Mondays, either Sunday evenings or travel evening or Monday morning. You've always got your Wednesday pro-am in the back of your mind. So I'll go out and I'll play 9 holes here, or I used to play more holes. Now I don't play quite as many holes. Now I'll only maybe do a 9 and a 9. A little bit of practice, work on something that maybe was a bit out the week before, but ultimately not really try and find anything drastic. Just try and, I guess, go out and see what the golf course kind of, how it wants you to play it. I think that's where I've got a little bit better in over the years, is actually playing the golf course how it wants you to play it, as opposed to you trying to play it differently. In the past, I always kind of said, right, well, if it's a drivable par 4, you're going for it. Whereas now, is it really worth it? What's kind of the best way to get the round done? Plot your way through golf courses, stuff like that. So I do quite a bit of that from, I suppose, Monday to Wednesday, and then once Thursday comes along, anything can happen. Really, you never know what weather's going to do, how you're feeling, this and that. You just got to try and adjust to the situation as best as possible.
How good's it been having the fans back lately?
Yeah, very good. No, I love them. I enjoy them. It was a strange period in time when we didn't have them around. It's like you'd make a birdie and there'd be birds chirping. It would be like odd. We almost kind of used your playing partners as like cheerleaders. It was strange. I think at the same time, a lot of the bigger names, your top 20 in the world, your PGA Tour stars, I think they struggled with it more than maybe us European Tour players who don't always play with the same number of fans. I think the European Tour, barring your major events, the majority of them, they have a crowd going with your final groups and your lead groups and stuff like that, where I do find that a couple of the youngsters out on tour, they've probably had the added benefit of not having the fans because they haven't really played under the pressures, which, I mean, I joke, Garrick Higo, do we play golf together almost every week? I didn't realise, but the PGA Championship was the first time he played a golf tournament with a fan. I mean, it would have been on the European Tour for 2 years. So it's just a completely different dynamic. It just makes golf a little bit stranger. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm used to it. The Sunshine Tour doesn't play with a lot of fans as well, so I mean, it kind of just felt like playing back home. But yeah, certainly with them there and cheering you on and stuff like that it's special. I mean, the Open, I was having a laugh. I played with Paul Casey on the Saturday. And Alan, my caddy, still chirps him and says, it's Paul Casey from the UK. And Alan said, no, it's Paul Casey from Arizona. But the UK fans loved their own players. It was beautiful. It's special. I mean, if you've got a group and you know the people out there and they're allowed to cheer you on and support you, it can only be helpful in terms of your own success.
Look, I know the South African golfers, you're a close-knit bunch. The Australians are as well. You mentioned you played golf with Garrick Higo nearly every week. Who are some of your closest friends out there? Who are your regular practice round buddies?
George and I play quite a bit together. George Couture. We always play together. We always have a bit of a money game. I've actually got Garrick's cash in my pocket, or I'm waiting for it. He hasn't been back yet. He's living the dream there in America at the minute.
He can afford it. Come on, Garrick.
No, you can't afford it. But yeah, Dean Burmester, Louis de Jager, we all kind of try and play. Christian Besaidenout. Yeah, we try. I mean, it's difficult, especially with scheduling. It's a little trickier trying to get the right tee times, and some people like to play early, and some people like to play late, and only do 9 holes and 18 holes. So you got to try and navigate that whole process each and every week. But ultimately, we try and get together as much as we can, and have a bit of a game and a banter, and ultimately see who's up going into the week.
I know your girlfriend Leah. She travels with you to a lot of tournaments. How important, how influential has your team been in helping you take that or reach the next stage of your career?
Very good. I think I touched on it obviously earlier in the show as well. When I was still in South Africa, making that adjustment, family, friends, and golf club were all hugely supportive, and probably without them, I wouldn't have been able to actually manage the whole situation. But yeah, from now, this point onwards, Alan, my caddy, he's hugely influential in terms of my success on and off the golf course. Leah as well, she's a rock. She's got her own business, which drives her up the wall, but she's hugely supportive of my career and allows me to go and play as much as I do. And yeah, ultimately, I mean, you kind of need to have those stable things in your life to where you can, if things are going badly, touch wood, they don't really turn that way too much, so that you can sit down, relax, and try and get through it and get over to the other side.
Oh, look, you could consider yourself very unlucky missing out on President's Cup selection back in 2019 at Royal Melbourne. Next year, Quail Hollow, making that international side. I'm assuming that's got to be very high on the priority list.
Absolutely. I kind of played my way out of that team, to be fair, in 2019. I didn't quite match the results I was matching earlier on in the season. And a couple of the guys were playing well, and completely understand Ernie's thinking and thought process in terms of his selection. Having said that, next year is obviously a special one as well. I mean, it's a team. I've watched Brandon, I've watched George, I've watched Louis, I've watched these guys obviously represent South Africa on the highest of stages, and I mean, you want to make the team. It's just at the same time, there's a strong contingent of South African golfers, especially that are all vying for the same spots. I mean, you've got Louis, Brandon, who's playing well, Christian Besaidenout, Gary Kigo, who we touched on and spoken about, Dean Burmester's right up there as well, Dylan Fratelli. I mean, there's a lot of really good South African golfers, and I mean, can't pick them all.
No,
can't pick them all.
You don't have to worry about Rory Sabatini anymore.
No, we don't. He's actually, interestingly enough, playing in the Czech Masters this week.
I saw that.
Yeah, Rory's changed to Slovakian. So look, credit to him, man. He did well. Got himself a medal.
Absolutely. Hey, look, you're currently 20th on the Race to Dubai standings. There's lots to play for the rest of the year. What are your goals for the rest of 2021?
Ultimately, you just keep trying to do what I'm doing. Put myself in contention. If I can sneak another win, then that would be awesome. That would be a bonus. I think I'm not really a huge goal setter, to be honest. I mean, obviously, beginning of the year, you'd obviously like to make it to Dubai, because that just means that you've had a decent and successful season. So I think with that being wrapped up, obviously just try and slowly but surely plod my way up the order of merit, the Race to Dubai, and see if we can finish as high as we possibly can. I think I got 26th in 2019 or something like that. So try and finish better than that. Maybe sneak into the top 20 or into the top 10. And yeah, ultimately, I want to go back to South Africa and obviously try and play well in my home events back there. I'd missed them last year, so I want to go and give them a shot and see if I can maybe do what Christian did last year and just pick up trophies each and every week.
Well, you've done plenty of that in the last few years. But look, you love playing golf. 35 years old now. Where do you see yourself in 15 to 20 years from now?
Ewan, that's an interesting question. I don't want to look that far ahead. No, I couldn't tell you really. Whether I'll be playing golf, I mean, maybe. Darts in the Champions Tour, unless you get into America. I mean, that Champions Tour is like pretty much a closed circuit. Hard to get into that. So you probably just got to look at trying to get the best out of your golf for the next 10 years, and then hopefully just live the rest of your life as best you can and without any stress.
Well, it sounds like a good plan to me. Justin Harding, thanks very much for being on the Life on Tour podcast, and we look forward to watching you the rest of this season and the years ahead.
Thanks very much, Ewan. Thanks for having me.
To watch another European Tour video, click here, and to subscribe, click here.